Episode 2, here we are. Before I started the show, I wanted to go ahead and give 3 shout outs. Not paid partnerships, please. These are not paid. But I wanted to go and shout out my home website that I've been using. It's been super easy to go ahead and build my podcast as a first time podcaster. And I want to give a shout out to Simplecast. They've helped me build my website and it's been pretty easy to use. I would recommend them. The second shout out I want to give is to Spotify. Spotify has made it super easy to upload a podcast, so I want to give them a quick shout out. Once again, not paid. And the third shout out I want to give is to my team that's helped me build my podcast. So shout out to Natalie Abreu, my producer. Shout out to Karen Alcazar, my illustrator, and shout out to the music that I have on here. But yeah, let's get started with the show. I'm Luis Agustin, and this is A View to Film. Okay, and welcome back to A View to Film. This is your host, Luis Agustin, and today I have a very special guest joining me for my next movie. This guest, we met not too long ago. We've known each other from some CCNY circles. That's City College of New York, for those who don't know. She is currently a big boss and works in the School of Engineering. And then lastly, she is a part-time photographer. Please welcome Miss Yulisa Aquino.
Hello, hello. It is a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No, of course. No, pleasure is mine. Thank you for coming on. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your day during this tropical storm we're currently recording, which couldn't be a more perfect day to record, right?
This is true. There's nothing better to do than being inside watching a movie.
Exactly. And hopefully whoever hears this can really enjoy this film because I really love it. You really love it.
Definitely.
And we're just going to dive in. So why don't you tell the audience what movie we picked?
So we picked A Bronx Tale.
In your own words, describe the movie. What is it about? Who's in it? What do you want to talk about it?
So Robert De Niro is in it with Chaz. I forget his last name.
It's okay.
And I really like that it's a relatable movie, not only because I'm born and raised in the Bronx, but just because of the actual story that it tells and the young man that it follows. I think if everyone watches it, they'll either relate to it themselves or definitely know someone that has lived some of the events and the unfolding of the character's life.
I totally agree. I like it for the very same reasons. And then before we start talking about any topics and anything to do with the film, I do want to issue a spoiler warning because we're going to go in deep. I want to make sure that everybody knows that before you listen to the
Make
review.
sure you put that disclaimer in the title.
No, of course. I mean, that's why I made sure that at the beginning, look, 2 minutes in, hey, spoiler warning, don't listen, if anything. Yeah, you know. But yeah, no, it's a great film. I appreciate it the way you do. And now let's talk. Let's start. Let's jump right into it. As a photographer, right? You're a part-time photographer. I really do love your shots, though. Thank you so much for coming out to the softball team, taking some photos, some videos.
I miss.
Yeah, I know. Me too. I miss it in the summer. I have a question for you. That's to start it off. Do you like the way the movie was shot? Like, do you like the way it was filmed? Do you like the photography, the cinematography? What do you feel about the visuals?
And I think it's very appropriate of the time that it was taken, but also the time that it was supposed to represent, which is the 1960s. And obviously, if that movie were to be refilmed in today's world, I'm sure it would be very, very different because I think that the cinematography made the movie and it just followed the story smoothly.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Now, the first thing I'm going to say, let's start getting into the movie, is My very first hot take. Do you think the wife was money hungry? Go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And actually rewatching it now with like the intention of pulling notes out of it, I got really upset at her when C, got this money from gambling essentially with Sonny, and his father Lorenzo is like, no, I'm taking it back. Like, you can't keep this money. She's like, wait a minute, but we already have it. Let's use it. And it's like he's kind of has to remind her, like, that's not the point. The point is that it's, in Lorenzo's mind, which is kind of true, it's dirty money and he wants nothing to do with it. But she's like, even when he leaves the apartment, she's hanging off the freaking balcony. I'm like, you're going to fall, yelling at him to bring the money back. I was like, clearly someone is money hungry.
But then that's not the only time. Wait, what was the other time?
Then there was the first time when Calagio first witnessed the big incident that made everything develop. He got offered $150. What was it, a week? To do side jobs for Sonny, and she wanted him to take it. But at least that first time, I feel like she just made a comment once. The second time around, she was really adamant about it, and she did not want to let go of that money.
That's crazy, this lady.
She's like, you already have it.
But may I ask you a question? If you were in that situation, how would you have reacted to your husband doing that? Like, what would you have done?
Agree with him.
Yeah?
I would totally agree with him. And I can speak from a few personal experiences. I feel his honesty to not want anything to do with that money, because you're going to feel some type of way and you kind of feel like you're supporting it when you don't agree with it.
Yeah, that's true. Now, you said the main character's name, right? So, how do you pronounce it?
According to the movie, which I did listen to it a few times, Calagio.
Calagio?
Oh.
Calogero? Yo, I struggle so much and I feel so bad. That's terrible of me. That's terrible. I'm so sorry.
It is what it is.
Yeah. But no. I need to like really learn how to say it, because
so he breaks it down when he's introducing himself to Sonny. That's where I picked it up from, because Sonny was like, wait, what the heck is your name? I'm sorry, I still didn't get it. Say it again. And he ended up saying it like 3 or 4 times. So that's when I picked it up. And he's like, Calagio. It was my grandfather's name. Calagio.
No, we need to say it right. And it needs to be my next topic. And one thing I want to point out is
pronunciation.
Powering your name. And, it's important for us to get somebody's name correct. And you notice in the film that Jane is the only one that actually uses his name.
Lorenzo was really big about that.
Correct. And like I said, notice that Jane uses his name. Everybody else calls him C in the movie, right?
Yeah, she was, like you said, she was like, your name is unique. I like it.
Exactly. And we need to like really highlight the fact that, we have to use people's appropriate names and have to pronounce them correctly. It's part of his identity. And I think that throughout the film, something that I've noticed is that he lost his identity the more he went by his nickname, if you think about it that way too, because he was becoming somebody else. So if he was using C and going by that, then his friends, can relate to him, because of another thing you'll notice is everybody had a nickname in the movie.
Agreed. And you pointing out Jane's part with his name, I think I said to myself, it's really funny that a lot of the times we're given these names, like you said, with a purpose, for a reason. But if you get a nickname, you go your whole life with this nickname. And I asked myself, like, then what was the purpose of you being given a name if you're not going to use it, if you're not going to have pride in it? I'm personally try to get rid of nicknames as soon as possible. You know, I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and you know how it is, especially in the Dominican culture. As soon as you're born, it's like, yeah, you're given a name, but you're also automatically given a nickname.
So wait, what do they call
That
you? What are
is.
some
Oh,
variations?
thankfully, I got lucky. I got lucky, and it was just Julie. I think occasionally, from what my older brothers and sisters tell me, because I'm the baby, they used to call me Kira, but that didn't stick, thankfully.
Oh,
I got
hopefully.
rid of that quickly. So Julie has stuck, you know, and
Right.
but I have a lot of nieces and nephews that are teenagers or even already adults, and they're still using their nicknames, such as Beba and Bebo. And I'm like, I'm sorry, stop.
How old are they?
Adults,
Oh my
like
God.
adults, full-blown legal adults. But like I said, because you've grown accustomed to letting people call you by your nickname, it's
Right.
like that's your automatic, except in your professional world where obviously you use your real name. You know, outside of those four walls, it automatically turns into your nickname. And I hate that. And I'm like, no, your name is Karen. Your name is Alexandra. Your name is Ricardo. Stop with these nicknames that are meant for a baby.
So it's funny you say that because it goes to also another point in the movie where they're constantly the adults are reminding Kalojiro, I'm so sorry, I'm gonna kill this again, about the fact that he'll learn when he grows up, and
Yeah.
it leads to what you're saying to your nieces and nephews about, hey, you're gonna learn when you grow up that you need to put more respect in this because people need to respect your identity about yourself. So another thing I wanted to point out was, in continuing on the nicknames, you got Tony Toupee, Coffee Cake, Jimmy Whispers, Mush.
Those
Oh
just
my
somebody
God.
got bored.
I know, these are terrible.
They got bored and they're like, okay, so Calagio is going to end up having a real simple and sort of cool nickname because it's going to be shortened to C, but he has to stay the main star. So everyone else's nickname is just going to be stupid.
All right. All right. So let's start off with the beginning of the movie. What did you think about Kalajiro, his decision to go ahead and not snitch on Sonny?
So it's funny that you say that because that little interaction, again, you know, watching it now for like the fourth or the fifth time with the intent of taking notes. I like when Lorenzo explains to him, you did a good thing for a bad man. And as a child, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. I don't understand what that means. And that's literally what Calagio says. And then De Niro explains it with, sometimes in life, you gotta do certain things that are not right. And I'm like, well, yeah, in that scenario, your son's life was on the line. So obviously, even though, you know, justice was not served, at the end of the day, you're looking out for your family and your son's life was pretty important. So, you know, you did something good for a bad man because now the bad man isn't going to get locked up, but it saved your life.
Do you think that his dad would have got held accountable had he done the snitching? Because clearly they were not going
Oh,
to
absolutely.
beat up, what was he, like an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old, right? Something like that.
Well, see, that's the other thing about this movie, that it's like, just like if you watch The Godfather and all those other mafia movies, you think that they won't harm a child, but the way that those businesses and organizations are built, it's all about having power. And obviously, if there is a person that is going to risk it by snitching and testifying, it would not be the first time. It wouldn't be the first case where they've
Right.
done everything they needed to stay, quote unquote, safe. So unfortunately, yeah, it would have been the child because he would have had to testify, you know, and absolutely would have gone after his father as well, because they would have felt that his father didn't, quote unquote, raise him with the proper, I guess, etiquette of the block. And, you know, Calagio managed to stick with it, and hence do a good thing for a bad man and save his life.
So here's another interesting question, because you grew up with siblings, right? How do you think?
Wait, actually, not really. So my siblings and I, we have a really big age difference. So I actually didn't really grow up with them. Just so you know.
But you know what it's like to have them right in your life, right?
Sure.
Even with the age difference, they're still like a second father, a second mother, right? Would you say?
Yeah, for the sake of your
For the sake of this, right?
for the sake of the interview, yes.
All right. So, no, well, here's my basic question. How do you feel C would have grown up, Calagio? I'm going to get it right one day. How do you feel he would have grew up if he had siblings in the beginning of the story? Would he have considered, would he have not have considered Sonny like an older brother? Because I feel like he had more of an older brother. Like, the way I saw it, I don't think that Sonny was a father figure. I think he was more of like
The big
someone
brother.
I look up to that I want to, someone that I look up to that I want to mirror myself by, and have that influence in my life. He was an only child. So how do you think that might have affected the way he grew up in this tale if he was under different circumstances?
I can agree. He definitely saw Sonny like the older brother that he can go to for advice, obviously, as he does a few times in the movies, and to learn certain things from. I think that if he had siblings, it depends. If it would have been younger siblings, I feel like he still would have gravitated towards Sonny just because he wouldn't, he would be the older one and have no experience. So he would still gravitate towards Sonny and then maybe get his younger siblings to follow suit. If the siblings were older, then I think it might have been a little bit easier for him to stay away from Sonny and go to his older brother or sister, probably more older brother, for advice and
Right, exactly. Yeah. Would you change any of the actors or scenes that played this or around in the movie? What if Chaz was Lorenzo and Robert De Niro was Sonny? Would you change that around? What do you think about that?
I think that the characters were all very well picked. I could see it the other way around just because it's Robert De Niro and he can do and has played, both sides. So I think he would have been able to get that whole, tough guy mafia character down packed. But I liked him more on the other side. And he brings this natural toughness to the character versus Chaz's, I'm a mafia guy toughness. So I wouldn't change the characters, even down to C. I feel like they picked a good character as a kid. I was like, wow, he's really selling this to me.
Yeah. What if I told you that this whole movie was based on Chaz's life? Did you know that? That's part of trivia.
So I started reading because I suspected, that you being Lewis, you would know this or look into it.
Well, I did look up some funny trivia about it. So I was like, wow, look, it's based on his life. And he wrote a Broadway.
Right. So that I knew the play. I just didn't realize that it was his life. And I was like, oh, wait, This was a play?
Yeah.
That would be an interesting side to see. But I did not realize that was his life. I stopped reading the 411 that I had looked up.
No, and then look at that. To bring it full circle, you notice that he goes by his nickname, which is Chaz, but it's Calagio. Like, you see that? It's crazy that he's still...
It sticks, and that's part of, like what I was saying earlier within our culture is like, if you make a name for yourself with your nickname, then nothing else matters, and you will use that nickname for the rest of your life.
Right.
Now, if things don't go so well for you, like C, maybe you stop using your nickname and embrace your given name.
How would you sell this movie to a 15-year-old? If you have any younger nieces and nephews, would you have them watch this? Why?
So I would definitely start with reiterating how relatable it is, both from the child's perspective to the teenage perspective, because it is 100% true that as a child, you're very curious. So the fact that he's always looking at, these people just hanging on a corner that look like they got money and, they're quote unquote living their best life, and then how he runs through the back of the building to sneak a peek at what's going on in the bar. That's all real life child curiosity. And when he becomes a teenager, as my nephew just turned 15, I would definitely, one of them, I would definitely, let him know, like, I think this is a good learning movie for you because of the topics that it touches upon, how Sonny, even though he's in the mafia or he's a gangster, whatever title he wants.
And he's cool. He got swag.
You notice throughout the whole movie, he tells Sonny very clearly, don't live my life. You don't want this life. Make sure you go to school. Education is where it is.
Right.
And I have to say that actually shocked me, like, the first time I saw the movie, because you would think he wants him to follow in his footsteps, and kind of create this person that might one day be able to take over, especially because Sonny didn't have children, biological children, at least at the time. So it is a little surprise that Sonny pushes him in the opposite direction.
I was surprised as well, but there's actually another part. I don't know. Do you want me to mention it now? In how I would say how we all grew up, right? From Hispanic background or just being different. One thing that stood out to me was, I don't know if you've noticed, but when he was trying to talk to Jane, right? Mm-hmm. He was talking about the whole time that, hey, I really like this girl, but she's colored. And remember, he went to advice from both Sonny and Lorenzo. And do you remember the advice both of them gave him?
I actually have to say I was a little tiny bit disappointed in Lorenzo's response, but then I had to remind myself of the times. Like, at the end of the day, they still lived in a time where up until, real movement started happening, it was quote unquote normal to not want anything to do with, colored people and whatnot. So I kind of took a second to be like, oh, really? That's your reply? But then I was like, okay, well, I guess for that moment, that particular moment, it made sense, with the hope that at least he was, and it's not an excuse, but at least he was, respectful about it. So it left room for hopefulness. So it's like, at the end of the day, C is his son. And I feel like if Calagio was to start a serious relationship with this young lady, he would be accepting just because his son, is opening up that door to him. I mean, that's just kind of what I thought about after I got upset. It's like, really? Then I was like, okay, well, let's reflect on it and understand the time that they're living in. And realize that at least he was, a little, he was respectful about it. And I feel like Calagio would be a priority enough for him to let that go and just see a young lady that Calagio really likes.
No, I know. I really did want to highlight the fact that Sonny was such a revolutionary.
Yes.
The fact that he told C, he's like, hey, man, regardless of what color, go for it.
I mean, there's that part, but then there's also the part that he basically just he kind of just said, hey, a woman is a woman, so it don't really matter.
Listen, but I will still argue though. that's problematic there. But I would still argue that at the end of the day, he's pushing him to go for your dreams, right? Yes. That's something that you dream about, regardless of what it is. It's something that you're going to shoot for, right? And as a parent, you want them to have your you want their full support. And in like a Dominican background or Hispanic background, you like you feel that it's like, ooh, should you marry outside?
Yeah. And in our cultures, our communities, they have no problem in letting you know how much against it they are, which then it doesn't even leave room for, oh, is it really going to upset them? Maybe if I do this. No, they straight out tell you.
Straight up.
We don't want that. And you're like, okay, so I can either let it go or I can pursue it, understanding and accepting that it is going to cause friction amongst my family.
Right. Right. And I've known a lot of people that have gone through that.
Plenty. It's really
I will say, though, at least Lorenzo stuck to his guns. That's for sure, man. That's for sure. Oh, my God. That's crazy. All right. So let's go into some of the other topics. What was your favorite quote of the movie?
So at first, when you told me to think about that, I was like, wow. But I love the whole movie. Like, how am I just going to pick one moment? And then as I started watching the movie, thinking with the purpose of like, okay, what scene is sticking out to me the most? Wait.
Is your scene also your favorite quote?
Yes.
Or
yes.
Okay. All right. So yeah, let's go with it.
That's where it kind of like came, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. They happen to be the same. So my favorite quote is from my favorite scene, which is when Lorenzo finds the money that Colagio got from Sonny, and Lorenzo goes to confront Sonny. And it's my favorite scene because, you know, as a father who's trying to do the best for his child, understanding that he's about to go, you know, get in a mafia person's face, it doesn't really faze him because he doesn't hesitate. He just understands this is my son and I have to protect him at all costs.
Right.
That's why it's one of my favorite scenes. But then he goes on, after they finish and they leave the bar, C is like really upset, asking him like, but why can't I keep that money? That C gave it to me. Lorenzo says, C tells him everybody loves Sonny. And C corrects him and he says, no, people don't love him. They fear him. There's a difference. And I have to say, I strongly agree with that. Fear does not equal love and respect. And it's a really sad misconception, which is why it's so relatable even in today's world.
I love that scene as well. It's very telling to everything that's going on. Do you... Because I was going to say, I think that... I mean, that was early on in the film, so I can't say that Sonny was already had some kind of love, brotherly love or uncle love.
No, that right. Colagio. Well, actually, you can, because even though it was early on, I think, and this is just my opinion, I think that because at such a young age, I believe he's 9, you know, Colagio, quote unquote, does a good thing for for a bad man. Right. I think he earned Sonny's respect, just like, you know, not doing what he assumed a child would do, which is tell the truth. So I think even though it hadn't been developed, and by then Colagio had already been in the bar a few times, you know, waiting on them and hanging downstairs with the gambling or forgot whatever the name of the game is. So it was already developing. It might have just not been as thick. So I think you can still say that Sonny already had his eyes set on Colagio to embrace him. The only thing we can't tell at that point is whether it's to embrace him to follow in his steps or embrace him, you know, to have him do better. On that same scene, really quickly, I also appreciated Lorenzo when he says the working man is the real tough guy.
Why do you appreciate that so much?
Because it's true, you know, and I've always been a person who believes easy money is not always easy. And
pyramid schemes, here we go.
No, but it's not even just pyramid schemes. It's just like Lorenzo says, you know, have Sonny wake up every morning at the crack of dawn and, you know, work those 9-10 hour shifts every single day to provide for his family. that takes a lot more than just telling people what to do and not really working to get that money.
It's tough because in one hand, and you saw throughout the whole movie, Calagio was just constantly
Torn.
pushing up, torn and pushing up against his father and saying, hey, like, yeah, you've preached your whole life about how the working man does this and that, but we haven't gone anywhere.
We don't have nothing to show for it.
We have nothing to show
that
for it.
That scene was a little sad.
Yeah, I was sad too. That's what I was saying. I was going to break down like, wow.
That scene was a little sad because it was like, okay, you know how every teen kind of has like the rebellious moment. That was his big moment. And he was just like, yeah, your parents did this and this and that, but they died and they had nothing to show for it. And,
right.
you know, he's obviously still at a young age where he believes that having nice suits and having people fear you is making it, versus having people respect you for having a job and providing for your family.
I guess it's more about like the legacy you leave behind, right? You know, it's just I guess the way he saw it in his rebellious state was that his dad is not going to leave any legacy behind because he didn't really do anything.
Right.
He just got up, went to his bus route, and then he got back. And I don't know. It was super tough to watch that scene, man. I'll tell you this right now. Yeah. It was crazy.
Especially as an adult, you know, you realize what your parents had to do to work to keep X amount of, you know, income going and food on the table and this and that. So like you appreciate, as Lorenzo says, that, you know, working aspect. And, you know, for Calagio to just kind of tell his father, like, listen, who cares that you've been working your whole life to provide for me? You're still nothing. That hurt.
No, I know. Man, it kind of leads. So let me segue into my favorite quote.
Yes, tell me.
And that is when he tells him that the saddest thing in life is wasted talent.
Yes.
Which is, once again, to me, it's already like, it shows that struggle. The fact that I feel like Calagio, I'm going to get it right, Calagio sees his dad as wasted talent. Don't you feel that? Don't you feel that he sees his dad that he can do so much more? Not necessarily something illegal.
Grand, right? Nothing grand.
Yeah, but I think that he sees his dad as wasted talent. The fact that he just sticks with the same thing. Yeah, and that's the way.
That's he chose to settle because I can see your point, and I can agree with that, because it's not like Calagio's father is an older man now getting ready for retirement. He's still young and in his prime. And you're right, for him to be in the same job, settling for X amount of years with just, you know, making ends meet, I can totally agree that Calagio feels like you could do so much more. You know, you're not done. Why are you stopping here?
I was going to say, in the movie, it wasn't really clear to me when I rewatched it. And I've seen it a couple of times, but I saw it yesterday just to, like, obviously so we can catch up. But it wasn't clear to me. Now, did the wife leave? Was she not around at the end? I was kind of confused. I didn't see her. She didn't have any other, or did, like, the director not choose to have any scenes?
I think they just felt she wasn't important, because you know what it is too. I feel that they set it up that way as well. So towards the end, she's there obviously when he's a teenager.
Yeah.
But just like the final part of the movie.
Yeah, like the final 30 minutes. I don't think she was around at all.
You know, the things don't really take place inside the house, and she's a stay-at-home mom. So unless the scenes are in the house, she doesn't, it's not that she doesn't matter. She just doesn't have a say. And I realized that they set that up watching it now again. Throughout all the times that they are in the house and Lorenzo needs to speak to Calagio, she doesn't take the lead. She doesn't know how to discipline him. And if you remember the first time, you know, in the very beginning, the first time he gets in trouble for getting caught being in the bar, she's like, tell your father what you did. And then he, you know, instead of like telling his father what he did and saying, you know, how do we punish him? So what are you going to do about it? And it's like, And I guess it also works for that time period where it's like the father is looked at, as the only disciplinary. And they set it up where it's like it's really just his father and him bumping heads and going at it as
No, and she encouraged it.
right.
Yeah, she was the one encouraging it because she let him have that audience,
Right.
that power when she set that up that way. All right, so let's talk about my favorite scene, and then let's move on from this tough moment. My favorite scene, surprisingly enough, is the bar scene when they beat up the bikers.
The bikers.
Yes, because
Why?
at the end of the day, let me explain. This movie is very deep. It has a lot of issues that we can get into, not only between fatherly issues, race relations, and a lot of things like that. I feel like that scene kind of shows not only kind of like a break in the movie, like versus all these heavy issues that are going on in the relationships. It kind of reminds you that, hey, that not only was there battle between like the Italians and the blacks, hey, there's also a battle between the whites and the Italians.
Yeah.
And I like that break in the middle where it shows them all fighting against each other, which is pretty cool to see because it's like, hey, I think this movie really highlights, what it was to be back in that time when everybody was just, we're about our own race.
Yeah.
We're not trying to mingle, or we're not trying to expand the way we're thinking, which is, once again, like we said, like how Lorenzo thinks, like God bless his heart. He was saying it as kind as he can.
Right. Because again,
yeah.
That's how they were raised.
Right. That's how they were raised. But I really enjoyed it. They beat them up and they said, "No, well, now you can't leave." That was fantastic.
That was definitely a gangster move of him. I was like, "Oh, okay." Yeah. I like that scene because it kind of, yes, it serves as a break, but it also brings you back to the idea, or it reminds you that, hey, yeah, Sonny's a nice guy because he's giving Calagio all the right advice. But let's not forget, he's a gangster. So
right, he's a gangster. Exactly. Yeah, like don't forget.
Right,
yeah.
It's a reminder that he's not, this good guy doing everything right. I feel like that's what that scene was made for. Because after the beginning, when he kills the guy, after that, you don't really see him as the bad guy. Because all he does is stand on the corner, drive the nice car, play shoots or whatever. So you kind of forget. And, so
yes.
being...
Yeah, you start developing a closer bond yourself as the viewer. You're like, oh, yeah, I like the Sonny guy.
Right. He's, saving Calagio. He's giving him the right advice. He's trying to protect him. And this is good. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, right. He's a gangster. You got it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I love how the whole neighborhood also gets in on it, and then like they start beating them up. Like it was fantastic, man. It was fantastic.
Oh, that is a good scene.
How did you think the ending went for you? What did you feel about the ending? And when I mean the ending, I'm talking about literally the entire time when he's trying to go on the date with this girl. He got the approval, right? He got the car.
And then that went downhill.
Yeah. His boys are trying to retaliate. Right? You know what? Actually, no. Before we even talk about the ending, I'm sorry. I wanted to ask you something. Do you think that his boys planted those eggs? I don't think that the bar got bombed like that. Their hangout. I was thinking that because I feel like they wanted to start, like the little kid, whatever his name was, one of his boys.
Yeah.
I feel like he wanted to start problems the entire movie. I would not be shocked if it was him.
He's that one outsider that just needs to be the center of attention. I did not like him the entire movie.
I know, meaning I hate guts.
And it's like, why? Why are you trying so hard to create something that's not there? And that's what he kept trying to do.
I know. It was ugly. It was ugly to see that.
It's ridiculous.
So that's what. So Mike. So that goes back to our question. Do you think that he was the one who planted those eggs there? Because I don't know.
I don't know. I did find that a little, now that you pointed out and I'm thinking about it because it's fairly fresh in my mind, those few minutes were very left field, and I feel like we didn't get an answer.
Right.
It's just like you kind of, like you're right now, just use your imagination and try to think who could have done it, when, how, because obviously the car was in Calagio's hands the entire time right before he picked it up. And obviously before he picked it up, it was already with Sonny. So it's kind of like, okay, wait, what? And it leaves you like, so are we going to get the answer or not? So I don't know. I thought that maybe it could have been him, just because
I thought so.
He didn't like Sonny. Sonny didn't like him. And maybe, it was his way of retaliating against Sonny, constantly telling him, you're an idiot, you're a moron, stay away from Calagio, blah, blah, blah. So maybe. But then again, as a mafia guy, it could have been anybody, because he could have had other enemies that just, didn't make the limelight.
What would lead him to think that he planted that? I don't know. I guess that's the life he leads, right?
Yeah. That's part of it. That's the life that you lead, and you obviously, and then remember in the car, after that happens, Calagio asks him, do you not trust anyone? He's like, no. And then Calagio says something along the lines of, that's a hard way to live, or something to those. Yeah. It's a tough way to live, or something like that. And that proves, and that goes back to what you just said. He does not trust the soul. So he automatically, has to assume that it's someone out to get him.
Right. So why do you think Jane's brother lied about Calagio?
Because he was pissed. I mean, I can't blame him, because at the end of the day, yes, Calagio didn't beat him up, but he also didn't stop them. And that's what I was like, no, don't just stand there, do something. Or when he called him over, it's like, okay, he called you over, but do you have to do what he says, And he's holding him down for the sake of kind of being involved, because he wants to be down with his friends, but then obviously doesn't want to beat him up because he doesn't believe it's the right thing to do. So he kind of deserved it. He was upset.
Let's say you and your girls, you're out, you're having a beef, right? How would you handle that? Like, how would it be different?
Well, he could have stopped his friends. So, he started to stop that, whatever his name is.
Yeah, the little carajito. Yeah, we know.
He started to stop him towards the end when the police were coming. You could have started to stop him prior to the police coming, because obviously, it wasn't the right thing to do. So I feel like that's where Jane's brother had the right to be upset at him. And granted, he didn't hit him, but he was still holding him down. And obviously, you're just a scared person that has someone on top of you and you don't know any better. You're thinking your life is still in danger because he's part of the group that's beating you up. He only really had a minute or two to assess that Calagio didn't actually hit him, but he was involved to a degree. So he was pissed. I can't say that I blame him. He was upset, and he's like, oh no, you cannot have anything to do with my sister because you hang out with those people. And you have to also think about it. He was probably scared for her, because if they did that to him, she's also Black. So what's to say that they don't see Calagio with her and decide that they want to do the same?
Now that Calagio's with Jane, do you think he's actually going to school? He's in a past class. Yo, they never went to school in this movie, bro. Yeah. And it looks like she was actually about her studies.
Because they say that, he started cutting school and hanging out in front of the block with his other stupid friends. But then Sonny is constantly on his case about going to school. And then they only really show him in school one day. So I'm like...
No. And not only that. No. If you remember, he faked out his friends. And then he purposely still left the test so he can go say what's up to Jane.
That's what I'm saying. Bro, what are you doing? You just... Okay, so you really aren't going to finish school. Okay, cool. Even though You know,
Yeah.
you have this person who you admire, which is Sonny, telling you how important school is. That wasn't enough for him. But I think with Jane, if he wants to stand a chance, because she is the studious person, he's gonna have to make that effort, because she's not gonna tolerate it, and she's just gonna be like, hey, I'm sorry, but I'm not trying to be with the high school dropouts. So
I agree. I think she would dump him.
absolutely.
I think, and it's the same way he had his little test for her. I
Yes,
think she would. Yeah.
Which reminds, speaking of, I have a question for you.
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Did you ever do the Mario test or the door test? And I guess
No.
we should tell the audience what the Mario test is.
No. I'm not telling them what that ridiculous test is. That is ridiculous. Go watch the movie.
And at the door test, I feel like Sonny, I feel like that wasn't a wrong steer. I'm like, okay, I can get behind that.
No, I will say this. When I first saw that film, I forgot how old I was. This film came out in like 1993.
Yeah.
I probably saw it when I was a late teenager. Probably, I don't know. Whenever it came on cable, right? Because that's when I used to watch movies like that. But I feel like that's a great test. Obviously, we don't have, think about it on so many levels. We don't have those kind of cars anymore. So it's difficult to use that kind of test. But it's great because it shows how selfless she is, you know, and you need that in somebody, you know, like, wow, I'm telling you, Sonny was a revolutionary.
That's why I feel that they had to throw in that motorcycle scene to just remind you, hey guys, he's all these good things for Sonny. Yes. He's being a good influence, but let's not forget what he does behind the scenes. Yeah,
Sonny, you were built for 2020, bro. Yes. You know what it takes to have a good woman. How to test the bro.
But I feel that test, and I wish he would have given a little bit more background as to how he even, thought about it or came across it, because it kind of makes sense, like I realized when I watched this movie with another friend that I was like, you have to watch this movie. I realized that I do that. It's like, and it's not even just for like a guy friend, but like if I'm in the car first, whoever the driver is, I automatically like, okay, well, let me help and, get the door open or whatever. So I'm like,
I didn't know that.
Wow.
No, I didn't know that.
That's
good for you, girl. You're one of the good ones.
Thanks. I was like, that's actually like a very nice, legitimate, test. Cause I think he made a good point. If they don't care, then they're selfish. And he was like, dump her. He's so strict. And Calagio was scared. He's like, just dump her? Poor kid.
Yeah. No. Listen, revolutionary. I loved it. I need to come up. You know what we're going to do? We're going to do homework. We're going to come up with a test for 2020 on how you test the same kind of morals in somebody.
I'm
right?
with it.
Yeah, come back to me. Send me a private message later on. Like, hey, this is the way. But it's true. It's like you get in a car, and if the girl doesn't open the car for you when you come around, nah, man, that is fantastic. Fantastic. I love them, man. I love them.
Sonny had his really good points. And I think that's also why, understanding that was, part of his real life, I feel like that's also why he felt the need to share it. Yes. Because ultimately, clearly, he had choices and he went down a different path. He chose not to go down Sonny's path. But
yes, that's the gangster that he knew when he was younger.
It was dangled in his face.
Yeah.
And I feel like he understood that the message that he learned was important enough to share it with the world.
So going back to the ending, right? So spoiler warning, of course, from what I said in the beginning, right? So his boys get in the car, he gets yanked up by Sonny, and then they all eventually get blown up.
Sonny's a lifesaver, man.
Yo, the best, the greatest of all time. How did you feel about that part of the ending?
It made sense because the entire movie, Sonny is always looking out for Calagio. That's number one. Number two, he's always telling him, those friends of yours are going to lead you to trouble. stay away from them. And because Calagio kept saying, no, but they're my friends and like we grew up together, Sonny knew that he had to be like extra vigilant when it came to them. And obviously it's the neighborhood, so there's eyes everywhere. So it got back to Sonny that Calagio was seen with the guys, and Sonny just has a good intuition about these things, and just really disliked those kids because they were not headed in the right direction. It was very dramatic what happened, but fitting. It's like you want to go out there and be so destructive that it came back to bite you in the ass.
It kind of goes back to something that was mentioned in the movie, which was sometimes you have to let the kids make mistakes,
Right.
Like, and wow, it sucks to lose your life, but I don't know. That's the crazy thing about it, is that I don't know who could have reeled them back in, because they didn't have somebody that they looked up to like Sonny that was right there with them.
But even so, I mean, technically they could have had Sonny, but they didn't idolize Sonny because that wasn't good enough for them. Sonny was, I think in their eyes, Sonny didn't really hold power, because if they did, I feel like they would have followed Calagio and been after Sonny the same way.
You think so? You think that they didn't respect Sonny's power in the neighborhood?
No, I don't. Especially towards the end, when he catches, I don't remember, the weird nicknames, selling the gun. Then he comes.
Oh no, that was another dude. That wasn't even part of their crew. Yeah.
But the main stupid one out of that circle, he didn't grasp that message where Sonny is like, stay away from that. That's not, that's not what we do. It's not for this neighborhood. What does he do? He turns around and makes bombs or whatever.
Cocktails. They're called cocktails.
Right. Whatever they're called, the cocktails. And, if he really respected Sonny, I don't think he would have gone to that level, because Sonny told them, like, guns and, being cruel isn't cool. And they haven't witnessed Sonny on that level of cruelty either. So clearly they're not trying to follow Sonny's path.
Well, once again, I would say the opposite. They saw the bar scene. They were there. Remember, they were beating up that guy outside, like they ganged up on him.
But they just like the violence.
Yeah, they just like the violence. They clung on to that. The next part of the film, Sonny gets shot, right? It ends the movie. How did that make you feel? The fact that it was the guy's son at the beginning of the movie who shot him. Like that full circle.
That's exactly it. It's a full circle. And, it kind of goes back to, at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and you can't outsmart them all. Which is also why I wondered if the bomb under his car could have been related to that.
Yeah, probably the kid did that.
Right. Maybe that was his first attempt, and obviously he failed. So then that's why he goes for, the more direct approach of, okay, well, let me just do it head on. But it's kind of like karma. It's gonna come back to bite you in the ass, and you killed a man. So obviously you have to pay for that one way or another.
Right. Do you feel he deserved to die? After you've grown this long relationship with him, he's doing all these good things. We just crowned him the revolutionary.
Yeah, but he's still a gangster. Well, no, maybe he didn't deserve to die, but he did deserve to pay for what he did.
Yeah.
But obviously, being a movie, it needed to be traumatic.
And the fact that he killed him the same way, which was a gun to the head, like he did to the dad, that was like also another tie-in.
Yeah.
I remember the call back to the beginning,
It literally was full circle.
Would you have changed anything from the way the movie ended like that? Then he got with Jane, the kids blowing up, Sonny passing away. Like, what do you think? Anything else you would have changed there at the end or no?
I don't think so. I think it was all very fitting and all the pieces worked. I might have liked Lorenzo being involved just a little bit more.
In what way?
With Calagio's decision to date a colored woman, just because of what he said earlier on.
I know that left a bad taste.
Didn't tell him, hey, it's me that's interested in a colored woman. He said, what if? And like I said before, I feel like it would have made a difference because he loves his son so much. If Calagio would have said, no, this is serious and it means a lot to me. I would have liked to see, even if just a minute or two, of what his reaction would have been for real, seeing that, oh, it wasn't a what if. It's real and it's happening.
May I ask you a question? What do you think would have happened if his boys had known that he was trying to date this girl?
I think they would have tried to beat him up and definitely isolated him. They wouldn't have wanted anything to do with him because their hate and their belief of them not belonging was so strong.
It was strong.
That I don't think they would have accepted Calagio not agreeing with them.
Would it have hurt worse his dad finding out or his boys?
His boys, because at least his father, like I said, because he cares about his son so much and he's shown that he's at least a respectful, honorable man, even if he would have gotten upset at Calagio, that might have just been the end of it. With his boys, I have no doubt that they would have gone after him, feeling betrayed.
Like maliciously?
Yes, and they would have felt betrayed.
I guess the reason I mention it is because there's another point in the movie where, remember how Sonny told them, like, hey, yeah, you lend that guy $20, like for $20 and you lost him, like you didn't need him anyway. Would that have been an escape for him from his boys, where he knew he kind of didn't want to be there, but, like, hey, I'm dating Jane, she's black, so what? What's up? Like, oh, we're not gonna mess around with you no more. Like, all right, then laters, because I really like this girl, Like, and that sometimes in life, you lose friends that way too.
You do, but I feel like they would have had to be drastic about it. It couldn't be simple and just like, okay, well, we want nothing to do with you. You can no longer hang out with us. They would have felt betrayed, and it would have had to be drastic.
I have an idea. We're going to film an alternate universe of Bronx Tale Part 2 where his boys are alive and they know he's dating her, and then
you want to see we're going to make up their reaction?
Yeah. It's a war on the streets. It's going to be Calagio, his new people that he found. He got the black crew versus the Italians. It's going down. What do you think? You like the idea? Should we copyright it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I think we're going to do it.
It'll be fun.
Last question, and to wrap it up, who do you think won the movie? Who's the MVP?
Oh, are you going to ask me something like that?
Of course, I have to. We have to crown a winner of the film. I got my winner. I'm sure you have your winner. Who do you think won the movie? Like, who made the most impact in this film?
There was definitely a balance, between, there was a push and there was a pull between Sonny and Lorenzo. And Calagio was lucky enough to have the advantages of both, He didn't just listen to his father and not take the good advice that Sonny gave him, such as have ambitions and do more.
You gotta just pick one, man. I love the reasoning.
I'm gonna say Sonny just because he was the bigger surprise, and he, I think, ultimately had the bigger influence on Calagio.
I 100% agree with you. I think that now that I rewatched it again, he was such a surprise to me. I'm telling you, all the advice he kept giving Calagio was like, wow, spot on. Like, I would like to pass that down just like that great advice of, striving for more, going for what you want, doing things the right way. Even though he was a bad guy, he was a really bad guy.
But I think that's why he gave the good advice, because he analyzed his life, and you kind of just looked around and it's like, I don't really have anything. He didn't have any family. He didn't have any children. He didn't really have anything. He just had people who feared him, and
So you feel like he knew that his time was coming, that he had to pass along his wisdom? Is
I
that what you
think
mean?
so, or even maybe not if it was as deep as, him accepting that his time was coming. I think it was more of him accepting that maybe he didn't make all the right decisions. And he has an opportunity to help a young man go through different paths. And maybe he didn't have that.
Right.
So now he's like, well, I can pass this along to someone else and he can have the best of both worlds, which is because he did have respect for Colagio's father.
Right.
So, I think ultimately, and again, it definitely goes back to how it being a real life story, it makes sense that he felt the need to share this, with the world and not just keep it to himself.
I agree with you, though. Listen, I agree with you. I 100%, it made me really look up to Sonny with all the wisdom that he was dropping. And I think that that's what you come back to the movie to see, that it keeps drawing you back in. The fact that this guy had been through so much, and he shows throughout the movie, hey man, this is the knowledge, like this is the right way to do it. And I guess it goes right back to the beginning where they kept trying to remind Colagio that, hey, when you get older, you'll know. So when you've gotten older and you know the right decisions to make, he's kind of trying to live his life through him,
Yes.
Yeah, and just kind of like, hey, no, man, I've been through that. I've done that. Like, no, do it this way. Trust me. Like, I've never steered you wrong.
It's a redo.
Yeah, exactly. It's a redo. But listen, that wraps up the show. Thank you, Yulisa, so much for taking the time out of your day. And I really appreciate you coming on, okay?
Thank you so much for having me. It was definitely a fun discussion and a really nice breakdown of a movie that I love.
If we have time to do like a little Harry Potter kind of movies, I might invite you back as like a third guest. Who knows? But
let me know.
You might get an invite.
It's actually on my to rewatch list. Yeah. Because I've been working from home, so there's only so much I can do.
I mean, the movies are okay, but there is some movies that I would like to discuss out of like that whole series that I think that translate better to the books. But that's for another show, another time. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I'm down.
All right, cool. So I'll talk to you later. Thank you, guys. Thank you for tuning in.